He's here.
There's a place in Indiana where time doesn't just slow down, it splinters. A quiet stretch of land buried deep in Park County, where the air carries the scent of rusted metal and river mist, and footsteps echo without a source. Billy Creek Village was built to preserve the past, but it preserved something else as well. Something older than the cabins and covered bridges, something hungrier. Locals whisper about flickering lights in locked rooms, about the small figure of a child standing in the schoolhouse doorway, about the preacher's voice still rolling out from the chapel long after his burial. The village never truly sleeps. The ground itself remembers. They say a shadow roams the church at night, eyes glowing like embers. Some swear it awoke when the graves beneath the chapel were disturbed. Others believe it never left at all. Call it a ghost, call it a demon. It doesn't care what name you choose. It only cares that you're here. Billy Creek was meant to be a museum of memories. Instead, it's become a prison for the forgotten. And once you walk its crooked lanes and pass under its bridges, something starts watching, waiting. This is the story of the village that time refused to bury and the things that still wander its streets. To tell it right, we have to start at the beginning, with the history and the buildings themselves, because maybe, just maybe, they'll explain why this place is the way it is today. Billy Creek Village began as an ambitious preservation dream in the 1960s, born from the pride of Park County after the success of its first covered bridge festival in 1957 and the Maple Fair in the early 60s. Locals wanted a way to keep visitors coming year-round. The solution was bold: create an entire town built from pieces of the past. By 1964, the plan was underway. Volunteers from the Park County Historical Society hunted for historic structures, homes, barns, general stores, even covered bridges, to relocate to a 70-acre site near Rockville, Indiana. Piece by piece, they dismantled them at their original locations, transported the beams, the planks, the stones, and rebuilt them here. In 1969, the new old town opened to the public as Billy Creek Village, named for a nearby stream locals had always called Billy Creek. At first, there were just a handful of buildings, but the collection grew steadily through donations, rescues, and relocations until the place became a living museum. Visitors could walk boardwalk-lined streets and step straight into the late 1800s and early 1900s. Costumed interpreters demonstrated blacksmithing, printing, weaving. School children took field trips here. Civil War reenactments and ice cream socials brought the lanes to life. By the late 20th century, Billy Creek had over 30 preserved buildings and hundreds of artifacts, a time capsule of rural Indiana life. Today, the village contains 38 historic structures: log cabins from the 1830s, Victorian-era shops, churches, a one-room schoolhouse, and even the former home of a state governor. One cabin, the Bain Plenty, built around 1830, still stands without a single nail in its poplar frame. St. Joseph's Catholic Church, built in 1886, still watches silently over the street. And three covered bridges: the Billy Creek Covered Bridge, 1895, the And Covered Bridge, 1906, and the Leatherwood Station Bridge, 1899, now frame the village and its surroundings, relics from a time when horses and wagons clattered over their beams. Other attractions dotted the grounds: a working blacksmith shop, a printing press, a maple sugar camp, even the gated entrance to an abandoned mine. At the far edge of the property lay the White Star Mine, a genuine United Mine Workers strip mine that operated from 1931 to 1939, a piece of modern industry tucked into a town frozen in the pre-1900s. One of the most cherished landmarks is the general store, the social heart of the village then and now. Built between 1850 and 1860, this white clapboard building once stood in Annapolis, Indiana, a bustling Quaker community. When the railroad bypassed Annapolis, the town faded. The store was moved to Bloomingdale, passed through several owners, and finally found its permanent home at Billy Creek in 1968. Another highlight, Dr. Rice's office, a small Greek revival building where Dr. Harris J. Rice treated patients in the mid-19th century. Born in 1823, he studied medicine in Philadelphia before returning to Indiana to practice. By 1857, he had taken over his uncle's medical office. This one-story building, originally on Rockville's Market Street, was updated in the 1860s and 70s, later rescued and moved here. Inside, an exam table and apothecary jars sit just as they might have 150 years ago, when doctors mixed their own medicines and sometimes doubled as dentists. The one-room schoolhouse, built in 1913, is another beloved fixture, painted rustic red, crowned with a bell tower. It once rang with the voices of children reciting lessons, and some say it still does. Every structure has its own story. Many were transplanted here from real communities, each one carrying not only its architecture, but something else, something harder to name. For decades, Billy Creek Village thrived as a living history park. But as the original founders and volunteers aged, challenges grew. By the early 2000s, attendance had dropped and upkeep became harder. In 2005, the village narrowly escaped demolition when financial trouble threatened to close it forever. A last-minute push saved it, but only temporarily. Within a few years, the gates closed again. The boardwalks went quiet. In 2012, the entire 70-acre property went up for auction. Bids ranged from $800,000 to $1.5 million. Rumors spread that the land might be sold off in pieces. 2 years later, a glimmer of hope. A group reopened the village in August 2014 with a grand celebration. But it didn't last. The streets fell silent once more. Then, in April 2022, a turning point. Greg Larson, a local entrepreneur and history enthusiast, took over operational management. Determined to restore the site, he repaired structures, brought in events, and reopened Billy Creek for tours and overnight stays. But alongside this revival came something unexpected, a wave of paranormal attention. Despite being a constructed heritage town barely half a century old, Billy Creek Village was steeped in ghost stories. Locals whispered that the spirits of the building's original occupants had followed their homes here. Some claimed the village was one of Indiana's most haunted locations. Visitors reported shadowy figures wandering between the buildings or glimpsed standing in the corner of their vision before disappearing. Occasionally, someone would see a clear figure in period clothing crossing the street, never acknowledging the living. Footsteps echoed across wooden porches and covered bridges when no one was there. Heavy boots, children's shoes, sometimes voices drifted through the air, faint whispers, sudden shouts, or murmured prayers from an empty church. Paranormal teams captured EVPs, a child's giggle in the schoolhouse, a whispered greeting near the general store. And though rare, some witnesses reported full-bodied apparitions, a woman browsing store shelves, a man leaning in a blacksmith doorway, a child standing silently in the schoolhouse doorframe. The theory? Each building brought its ghosts with it. While ghostly encounters have been reported across Billy Creek's grounds, a few locations stand out as paranormal epicenters. The general store, cheerful by day, becomes a hive of unexplained activity after dark. Visitors and staff have reported phantom conversations in the empty aisles, tins and jars moved overnight, and figures glimpsed through the storefront windows. One chilling account describes a man in an old suit and bowler hat standing by the candy display, vanishing as soon as someone stepped inside. Others have spotted a phantom storekeeper in suspenders tending to invisible customers. The schoolhouse is another focal point. In 2017, a visitor's photo appeared to capture the silhouette of a young girl in an old-fashioned dress behind the screen door, even though no child was present. Guests have heard children's laughter, the ringing of a handbell, and the creak of desks being opened. Overnight, investigators have left toys or chalk on desks, only to find tiny handprints or moved items by morning. Dr. Rice's office carries a quieter, heavier presence. Many report feeling watched, especially in the back exam room. Some claim to see a curtain move without a breeze, or glimpse a figure in a long coat, perhaps the doctor himself still making rounds. And then there are the covered bridges. By day, scenic; by night, unsettling. Footsteps echo in the wooden enclosures, pacing alongside visitors before fading into silence. Shadows slip between the beams. Some have heard an unseen traveler whistling, only for it to stop the moment they step inside. In recent years, one story has overshadowed the others, the black-eyed demon said to haunt the Union Baptist Church. The tale gained traction after a well-known ghost hunting group claimed to encounter a malevolent shadow with glowing eyes. They described a crushing sense of dread, as though the air itself turned hostile. Whether an invention or an authentic encounter, the story spread online. Now, thrill seekers approach the church with both excitement and caution. Some perform protective rituals before crossing the threshold. Other buildings have their own lesser-known chills. The Civil War-era farmhouse, where a silhouette is seen in an upstairs window long after the doors have been locked. The barns, where phantom lantern light sways in the rafters. In Billy Creek Village, nowhere is truly still. The site's haunted reputation has turned it into a destination for investigators and curiosity seekers. Caretakers now host public ghost hunts and rent out the entire village for private overnight investigations. From 7 p.m. until dawn, teams set up night vision cameras in the schoolhouse, EVP recorders in the churches, and motion sensors in the general store. Captured phenomena include disembodied voices, strange mists, unexplained EMF spikes, and thermal images of human shapes in empty rooms. Not every encounter is benign. One team claimed to provoke the black-eyed demon and paid for it. Multiple members became suddenly ill. One collapsed. In the darkness, they swore they saw a pair of burning eyes in the rafters. Growls echoed above them. Another investigator woke in the governor's house to feel invisible hands pressing her shoulders into the mattress. Most nights, the activity is subtle. A whisper, a chill, a flicker of movement. But sometimes, Billy Creek reminds you it can be more. From the outside, the explanation seems simple. Each building brought with it the energy of its original place, the memories of those who lived and died there. Whether the hauntings are residual impressions or intelligent presences drawn by the living, Billy Creek holds its ghosts tightly. Visitors are advised to arrive before sunset, walk the gravel lanes, touch the wood of the general store's beams, listen to the wind beneath the covered bridges. Might carry a whisper, a laugh, a name you know but shouldn't. When the shadows stretch long and the final tour ends, don't linger. The schoolhouse still waits for lessons never finished. The doctor's office still prepares patients who never leave, and the church waits for the door to open just enough to let something out. They say the black-eyed demon still roams there, clinging to the bones of the land like mold to stone. You won't see it at first, but if your flashlight dies and your breath turns cold, you'll feel it in your chest. And once you feel it, it remembers you. History was preserved in Billy Creek, so were the dead. And in the heart of that quiet Indiana wood, the past isn't gone. It's listening,